We are here a little late this Sunday morning.
Just a little bit.
Oh, Lord help us. Let's share the stream real quick before we get on to anything. Thank you so much for joining us here at Forest Park. I want to share the stream to make sure that anybody who wants to join us can kind of see what's happening. Let's click the share button. Let's click from my... Oh, I'm coming through twice. We are so grateful that you're here. And I clicked share. If you can do that, click share, by the way. Click share on Facebook. It's been a morning.
It has. It is.
A lot going on.
Yeah, lots of chaos to spread around.
Lots of chaos. Drew's here. Drew is our director today.
I am always.
Always here. And Jason's here as well on audio. Let us know if you're here in the chat. Brian Miller says, what's up, FPC? Brian, did you get your promotion? Tell us in the chat. Did you get your promotion? I want to hear that.
Yeah. I've been waiting on news about that.
Yeah, he was supposed to be Tuesday.
Don't matter enough.
I know.
I mean,
he told me he was going to tell me Tuesday.
I mean, jeez, man.
But if he did, let us know. I know he was kind of going either way on it, and he didn't know. So let us know, Brian. Let us know. Today we're going to skip a bunch of things because we don't have that much time. That time is off, so we're going to have less time than that. Can I change that? Is it possible? Should we even worry about it? No. Let's do. Hold on. I think I can do it. Ready? Boom, boom.
No.
Nope, I didn't do it. That's all right. Whatever. Let's do the question of the day, and then we'll get right into the list.
Question of the day was, given a choice, would you go with tacos or pizza?
Tacos or pizza?
I am a pizza guy, but tacos are different, man.
Let's switch it up for the second service. We talked about this in the first one. Tacos or burgers?
Tacos or burgers? Well, then it's tacos.
Yeah, I'm going to change it right here because tacos, I think, wins out over burgers, but I think there's an argument to be made for burgers. I think that a classic, there's again, a wide range of burgers.
Oh, there's endless.
You know, you got like all the way in the Wagyu beef.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what quality of beef do you have? What toppings do you put on that? I think that's what makes them, you know, similar to pizza in that there's a lot of variety. I think tacos have variety, but not as much. It's like tacos are tacos, you know, and you get a different meat there. But I still think I'd choose tacos. If you had to pick between tacos and burgers, which would you pick?
Am I making them or eating them?
Eating them.
Only eating them.
Okay. Tacos.
Okay. Yeah. Burgers are 100%. No, I did not. Sorry, dudes. Long weekend. I put in for retirement instead.
Hey, happy retirement then. I know it's
good.
still a ways off, but
yeah,
it's always a hard decision to make. So congratulations.
Yeah, Jill said, "Hey, y'all from Duke. Thank you for coming back, Jill, for the second list. We only have a few minutes, so we're gonna get into it. But she did say pizza, and then she said tacos, which I'm assuming was putting it against burgers. Yep. So, and then Brian said burgers 100%. I knew Brian would be a burgers man. He loves his meat. Yeah, he loves the steaks.
He loves those tomahawk.
Oh yeah, he does.
It looks like a barbarian style weapon.
Good for you, Brian. Good for you. I'm happy. All right, so we're just gonna get right into it. We only have probably 4 minutes left.
All right.
So first service, I went over my top 10 movie list.
You did.
And it was fun to kind of like share my favorite movies.
Very, very eclectic.
Yes,
list.
A lot of different genres. Yeah. I'm assuming yours is going to be a little bit more honed in.
Yeah, it could be.
And Drew would consider himself a movie guy, you know. So I'm interested. I have not seen this at all, genuinely. So we're going to pull up, and I'm going to put it on right here. There we go. Drew's top 10 movie list. Look, we got it much nicer than last time. All right. The top number 10 is Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves, I think, is a great movie about understanding. It's about attempts at communication, even when it's at its hardest.
Yeah.
Putting aside your own views and your own beliefs to experience life from somebody else's point of view. And I think that's the overall driving message of that, that a lot of perceptions can be skewed by ignorance.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fantastic movie. The photography and the actual camera work in the movie was groundbreaking at the time. The music is sweeping. The acting is incredible. I loved everything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things. Again, one of those classics, like, you know, and real quick, before we continue, I wanted to say, I feel like, and this is evident by your first one, you watch movies for entertainment, but you also watch it for the depth and the message that you get from it, right?
Yeah, I've been around for a little bit.
Yeah, so those are more meaningful to you
Yeah,
than just maybe a simpler movie that. And there's nothing wrong with those movies.
No.
It's just
Sometimes it's just for fun. Sometimes it's just for a laugh.
Yeah.
There's always, to me, I like to look for something a little bit more.
Just real quick, Jill said Titanic. Would that be your number one, Jill? Would you put that number one? And then Greg said Morning Media and FPC Family. So let's get to number 9. Dune. Okay.
Now this is any Dune film.
Any of the Dune films.
Any of the Dune, the sci-fi miniseries, the more recent one, the original one in the early 1980s. I love the book. The book was the very first sci-fi book that I ever read, like start to finish, and that was daunting for a young teen. It took me a while to read because I was a little different in coming up.
Yeah.
And but it is
it's a whole universe. I mean,
it is amazingly textured and detailed, and it's fantastic.
A lot of depth to that movie. I mean, I walked away from that movie like I need to watch that.
Yep.
And I only watched the new one. So, all right, next up, Saving Private Ryan.
Again, the photography in this movie is groundbreaking. There's so many other veterans that have come forward and said that this movie was as close to real life combat as you can get. The fog of war, the shock and awe of everything that happens, the brutality of it, and the disconnect that you have to have when you're in those situations is very apparent in these movies, because you see the magnitude of what is happening when it's done. You see the way that this whole situation has affected these people. And again, fantastic.
I think Pastor Scott would definitely put that on his list too. Greg said so accurate, phenomenal movie. My number one would be Tombstone. DOC Holiday is my hero. Jill said Shawshank number 1. That's interesting. All right. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yes, I am a huge Freddy Krueger fan. I love the comedic side to him. I love the way that he as a villain, he is fantastic. He's very entertaining. He's very charismatic, even being look like melted cheese. I think he has so much personality, and that's so rare in these slasher 80 horror icons. I mean, he's just so charming.
Yeah.
In this really sadistic kind of way. And I appreciate the special effects, the story behind it. And he has got some one-liners. Again,
another classic. I mean, and again, we said this in the first service. Classics are classic for a reason. You know, it's the same thing with like cliches. They're cliche for a reason. So, 6, Shawshank Redemption on my list as well. Number 1 on mine.
To me, it's one of the quintessential stories of hope.
Yeah.
And the power of hope.
Yeah.
That hope, you cannot kill hope.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I mean, again, IMDb's number 1 of all time. Scrooged.
My Christmas movie.
Yes,
I am a huge fan of the redemption arc of A Christmas Carol, and Bill Murray mixed with that is just. I watch it at least twice every Christmas since I was a young teen.
Yeah.
I love everything about that movie. Yeah. I love everything about the story, the comedic aspects of it. I think it's Christmas.
Yeah. Let's keep going. We got to go fast.
Big Trouble in Little China is definitely my guilty pleasure.
Never even heard about this.
I absolutely love this movie. It makes me smile from beginning to end. Everything about it is popcorn to a T.
Yeah.
You know, everything about it, man. The one-liners, the over-the-top comedic value, the slapstick nature of it, everything about it.
I'm gonna have to look into that one.
I love it.
Number 3, Serenity.
I am a brown coat. Everybody out there, I am a brown coat.
I don't know what that means, but he's a brown coat. We don't even have time to explain
it's
it.
The show Firefly, and I love that movie.
Good.
It's the ending story.
The Lost Boys number 2.
No. Yeah. That is the last good vampire movie.
Okay.
I love everything about it. I love the style. I love the special effects. I love the story, the acting, everything about it. And there's certain aspects that are a little over the top, like the Corys, but still fantastic movie.
Your number 1?
Boondock Saints. It is a story about doing what's right when everybody tells you that it's too hard or it's wrong, and having the courage of your own convictions.
Yeah.
Is it a little violent? Absolutely, but it's a story of sticking to your guns when everyone tells you to stop.
Yeah. That's his list. Thank you so much for being here. We got to go to worship.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for being here.
Get rid of the title.
I have heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven in humility I bow. Sing this with us. As your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me, for you are for us, you are not against us, champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. Yeah. I have heard you calling my name. I have heard the songs of love that you sing. Whoa, so I will let you draw me out beyond the shore into your grace. Oh, your grace as your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me, for you are for us, you are not against us, champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter into your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me, for you are for us, you are not against us, champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. 'Cause you make me brave, you make me brave, you called me out beyond the shore into the waves. You make me brave, you make me brave. No fear can hinder now the love that made a way. Sing it out. You make me brave, you make me brave. You call me out beyond the shore to the waves. You make me brave, you make me brave. No fear can hinder now the promises you made. Oh, 'cause you make me brave, you make me brave. You call me out beyond the shore into the waves. 'Cause you make me brave, you make me brave. No fear can hinder now the love that made a way. Sing that again. 'Cause you make me brave, are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way as your love and wave after wave. Sing it out. It crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. Yes, amen. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Sing this with me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Sing holy. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Oh, and holy, there is no one like you, and there is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder and show me who down, every burden, every corral. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every corral. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. Oh, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, Jesus. Have your way, have your way. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every corral.
This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. Jesus, we come to you in this moment, surrendering it all, giving it all to you, knowing that without you, we are nothing. And God, I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for this place, thankful for these people, and just for us to have the ability to just come and to just freely worship you and to just love you and to lean into you. Because we are not worthy of your love, yet you give it to us every single day. And God, I just pray that these people feel touched by you, and I pray that they run to you in every season, in every way. It is in your name that I pray. Amen. You can have a seat.
Good morning. Good to see everybody today. It's good to see you again. Everybody, I didn't do this first service, but I just want to give it up one more time for the worship band. I mean, they put in so much work. We have so much talent on stage. They bring their best attitude so that you can experience God in a real way. So I'm so super proud of that team and all that they do to make us experience God fresh. My name is Preston Waller. I'm the student pastor here. I said that earlier, but for those of you who may come in a little late, I was not originally planning to speak today. Actually, I was planning to just do Color Wars and call it a Sunday, but Pastor Scott got back from his trip to Arizona on Monday, and he was in the office about Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I think Friday he called me and basically was like, dude, I'm sick. I've got COVID. I need you to fill in. So I had to hop on my computer and put this message together in about a day. I hope that it doesn't reflect the time schedule, but if it does, I pray for your patience and understanding for the little bit of time I had to get it ready. But I'm excited about the message. We are in week 2 of Jesus, Magic, and Mojo, which is our series that's really designed to help us understand how we can create a passion for our faith again, and not only create it, but sustain it. Right, I talked about last week how community helps with that if we feel like we used to care, we used to love, we used to want to do certain things to follow God, but we kind of lost that fire, we kind of lost that, quote, mojo or magic, that one of the ways we're going to do it is by surrounding ourselves with diverse groups of people and surrounding ourselves with people who live on mission together and how important that was. And then today, I want to talk about another way in which we do that, which is by serving other people and when we make our life count for how we choose to serve other people. So today we're going to be looking at a passage from the book of James. If you have a Bible on your phone or with you, you can turn there as I get ready. But this book is really designed to help us do 2 things. James wants us to primarily, 1, see how awesome God is. That's his primary purpose for writing this book. The second purpose is, in light of God being so awesome, how should you and I walk and live our lives on a daily basis as Christians? And so what was happening to the Christians that James was writing to were these were people who bought into a lie that they believed, which was, I do religious things, therefore I belong to Jesus. I don't necessarily follow him, but I know about him, so because of that, I am a Christian. And James is saying, whoa, that's not how it works. He's saying, you can know about Jesus kind of like we know about historical figures, but that doesn't mean you follow him. Religious activity doesn't equate to following Jesus or being a Christian. And so he's kind of pushing back on this in the text that we'll read today. And we have to understand one thing before we go into it together is that I want to try to balance today between the groups of people that represent this room. There are probably more than not, if not in here, at least watching online, some people in here who would say, Pastor, I'm kind of new to the faith. Maybe the last 2 years I just started following Jesus. I'm really still trying to figure this thing out. I don't understand it completely. I don't know it all. I don't even know what it means in a real way to walk as a Christian should walk. I'm still struggling trying to figure it out. I don't want to snuff out that person's fire today. But then there's people in here who have been Christians for longer than most of us have been alive, and I don't want that person to deceive themselves into believing there's something they're not just because they show up to church on Sunday. So I want to kind of address both groups today, but I want to do so with a pastor's heart and not so much a harsh one. But we are all susceptible to being deceived into believing something we're not. Even I, myself, as a pastor, am. And that doesn't just mean our spirituality. That means life in general. We are all susceptible to believing something about ourselves that's just not true. And so the passage we'll look at today will really show us what God is trying to say to us today. And one of the things we have to know before we jump into James now is that when we choose to look at God as a father, everything makes more sense. Everything is more clear, that we understand God as a father, because what we'll read today will come across as warnings. And I do want to say that they are warnings, but they're not just warnings, right? If you're a parent in the room, you know this, whether you know it up here or subliminally, that when you choose to warn your child, you're not just warning your child. In essence, what you're also doing is extending an invitation to them for something that's better than what they're going after. Right? When a child comes up to the stove and the stove is red hot and you say, don't touch the stove, that's not just a warning, it's also an invitation into, hey buddy, that's not good for you. What's better is you back away from the stove. Or when your child wants to run into the road, hey, don't run into the road. It's a warning, but it's also an invitation into safety. Be safe. Come around me. Stay away from the road. There's safer things, better things for you. So when we read these warnings today, I don't want us to just say, well, this sounds like a bunch of warnings. I want us to see it's an invitation from God to actually pursue what is better and best for us. So with that in mind, let's jump into James. But before we get into James chapter 2, I want to show the last two verses of James chapter 1 because they're going to set up exactly everything we understand in James chapter 2. James ends chapter 1 with these two verses. He says, if anyone thinks he is religious without controlling his tongue, his religion is useless and he deceives himself. Pure and undefiled religion before God the Father is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained from the world. I do need to make a point. When we read religion, oftentimes, especially in Western America, we see that as a negative thing, right? Because it's relationship over religion. And that is a very true statement. I don't want to knock that. But we can't think that James is talking about negative religion here. So for the sake of helping us understand the passage, let's talk about what religion really means in that passage. It really means genuine faith. So James is really saying, pure and undefiled, genuine faith before God the Father is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained from the world. This is the command that God is giving you and I as Christians to do, right? We remember what Jesus said to the people in the New Testament. He said, if you want to sum everything there is up to know about following me, do these two things. Love your neighbor as yourself, right there, care for the orphans and widows, and love me with all you got. Don't be stained by the world. So James is reiterating the royal law or the law of love, which is to love our neighbor as ourselves and to love God with all that we have. And this is what God commands that his people do. And we don't like to think of a God who commands us to do anything because that makes us feel like he's forcing us to do something. We like to think of a God who suggests things to us. Well, I know that you should do that, brother, but if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's okay. I understand you're going through a tough time. Don't worry about it. I think this is best for you, but if you really don't want to do it, that's okay. You don't have to. We love a God who suggests, but the God of the Bible is not a God who suggests. He's a king who also has commands for his people to follow. And we don't like seeing God as a king oftentimes because we have negative connotations surrounding leadership and kings, historically speaking. We look at politicians who are leaders of the world. We look at kings, we look at queens, and we look at how corrupt they can be, how selfish they can be, how manipulative they can be, and we think, man, that doesn't sound great. But the difference between Jesus as a king and earthly kings is when Jesus has commands for his people to follow, the commands are actually what's best for his people. Earthly, corrupt politicians, leaders, and kings make commands on their people, but the commands are actually self-seeking to serve the king, not to serve the people. Jesus' commands for our lives are to serve in what's best for you. So when he makes a command, it's a command to say, do this because this is what's going to bless your life most, not how other people work, which is do this so that my life can get better. So we have to understand that Jesus is calling us to do these things if we're going to claim ourselves to be Christians, that we are to love God with everything we have, and we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. And I say all that to say that because what we're going to see when we move into James chapter 2 bases itself off of those two verses. So in this region where the church is, talking about the church, the Christians that James is writing to, because they're not loving their neighbor, and because they're not loving God, the church is losing its witness, the joy is being sucked out of the believers, and God's name is being disgraced. And James is saying, you guys you're having debates about, are you really a Christian? Are you really a Christian? Are you really a Christian? But you're asking the wrong questions. None of you are loving your community. None of you are loving God. You're just sitting around having debates about who's truly a believer and who's not. So James is attacking this mindset in James chapter 1. And if we want to know the difference between religious moralism and the gospel, Tim Keller makes it clear in his quote that I want to share from you from his book, Gospel and Life. Tim Keller's a pastor, or was a pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian in Manhattan, New York. He's an amazing author. If you read anything by him, I would 100% back everything he has to say. He says this: a merely religious person that believes God will favor him because of his morality and respectability will ordinarily have contempt for the outcast. They will say, I worked hard to get where I am, and so can anyone else. That's the language of the moralist heart. But I am where I am by the sheer and unmerited mercy of God. I am completely equal with all people. That is the language of the Christian's heart, a sensitive social conscience and a life poured out in deeds of mercy to the needy is the inevitable sign of a person who has grasped the doctrine of grace. If you want to see who understands the gospel, who truly follows Jesus, look at the people who are serving the needy and serving the needs of the community. Keller's reiterating the point that we see in James chapter 1, that those who follow Christ love their neighbor. They don't try to justify themselves as better or worse than others with their moral and ethical behavior. And one of the things I'm going to say before we jump into James chapter 2 now is that I don't want this message to become something it's not, because if I'm not careful, it can sound like that what I'm asking for you to do is be perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect, right? We can go back to James chapter 1 and be like, what you're asking me to do is always love my neighbor. If I ever fail to love my neighbor, I'm not a Christian. Or if I ever fail to love God with everything I have, then I'm somehow not a Christian then. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what the text is saying. And I'm not saying that you have to pursue perfection. That's not realistic, and that's not gospel. But what I am saying is Christians don't have to pursue perfection, but Christians should be pursuing progress. We should be pursuing being better tomorrow than we were today, and being better today than we were yesterday. And that doesn't mean we always are better the next day than we were today, but it means that we desire to grow. We desire to get past some of the things that we're dealing with. We desire to know more, to love better, to understand more, to listen better. That we are looking to progress and progress as much as we can in our faith. And that is the sign of someone who takes their faith seriously. That is looking to grow, looking to strive for more, looking to understand their faith better than they do today. And so we are not asking for perfection from you today. What I'm asking for is consider actually pursuing progress in your faith with God. So the outline for the message is very simple today. I'm going to give you the what, I'm going to give you the why, and then I'm going to give you the better way. Not going to be very hard to, I hope, grasp onto you today. So let's jump into James chapter 2. The first 3 verses of James chapter 2 say this: my brothers and sisters, do not show favoritism as you hold on to the faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ. For if someone comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and dressed in fine clothes, and a poor person dressed in filthy clothes also comes in, if you look with favor on the one wearing the fine clothes and say, sit here in the good place, and you say to the poor person, stand over there, or sit here on the floor by my footstool. So This is partiality. And the problem that James is addressing, the what that we'll address today, is that we do not show partiality. These people, these Christians, these members of the church were showing partiality. They were showing favoritism, or in a more negative connotation, they were showing discrimination. They were discriminating based on external appearances. A person would walk in with these fancy clothes and a nice car. I'm contextualizing it for America. And they would have all the money, and the leaders would say, please sit up front. Sit up front. We'll go make your coffee for you. Do you want me to take your kid to Kidventure? I'll make sure that they're in the front too. Hey, what else can I do? Can I get you a Bible? Can I sit with you? Can I pray with you? And then someone with no money, with filthy clothes would come in and they would say, you sit back there. Don't be up here with the other people. Sit back there. Be alone. Don't come in and expect to be treated the same. And James is calling attention to this, that we as Christians should not show favoritism. No matter who it is, that we don't favor one group of people over the other based on what kind of money they make, what kind of clothes they wear, how their voting record looks, the kind of people they hang around, if they're easy to be around or not, that we show the same grace to all people of all walks of life. And James is addressing this that the church is dealing with. And we have to, and when I say we, I include myself in that, we have to fight against the human natural tendency, which is we want to be around people the same as us. It's easier to surround ourselves and create circles in our life with people that look like us, act like us, vote like us, find themselves in the same tax bracket as us, who love the same things we do, who have the same favorite football team as we do, who enjoy the same hobbies we do. It's easy to be around those people who are easy to get along with. When I mess up, they're quick to forgive. Everyone wants to have a circle of friends like that. But what we don't want is to create circles of people in our life where they're difficult. When I do mess up, they actually don't forgive me. Actually, they don't vote the same way I do. I try to talk to them about sports. They don't like sports. I try to talk to them about politics. They don't like politics. They don't spend money the way we spend money. They don't see the world or the Bible or God the same way we do. And because they're difficult, our natural human tendency is to shun them and surround ourselves with what's easy and what's familiar. And James is saying, do not do that. Christians don't show partiality, favoritism, or discrimination based on the external appearance of a man or a woman. And we'll move on to the why now. Why? Because the what doesn't need a lot of explanation. In life, the what is oftentimes the easiest part to explain. It's the why that gets us, trying to explain why certain things are the way they are. Like, let's just take it back to the parent example. If you have a kid and he's 5 years old and he runs up into the house with muddy boots on, and you stop him and say, whoa, 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 whoa. Take off your muddy boots before you come in this house. And he'll take off his muddy boots. That's the what. That's easy to explain. But your 5-year-old son's going to turn around and ask what every kid in the world will ask their parents. Why? And 99.9% of parents here in the room will say the exact same answer. Because I said so. Because I said so. You don't need to know why. Because I said so. Right? Because I said so is a lot easier to explain to a 5-year-old than actually explaining why he doesn't need to wear muddy boots in the house. Like, try imagining sitting down with your 5-year-old. Okay, well, so when you run to the house and get mud in the house, mama acts this way, and when mama acts this way, I act this way, and when I react this way, I get angry, and then I talk to you this way, and then you get punishments and consequences this way, and here's why, at the end of the day, it's best for all of us if you just don't walk through the house with muddy shoes on. That's hard to explain to a 5-year-old. So oftentimes we just settle for because I said so. But the why is complex. So the why is this. Let's read it in James chapter 2, verses 4 through 5. Haven't you made distinctions among yourself and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, didn't God choose the poor in this world to be rich in the faith and heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him? The what is, do not show favoritism. Why don't we show favoritism? Because when we do, we dishonor God and we show that we don't understand the gospel. When we show favoritism, we are dishonoring God and we are proclaiming to the world that we don't truly accept and believe the very faith that we hold fast to. I don't know if you grew up playing sports or not. I certainly didn't. I was a degenerate in high school. I liked sports, but I wasn't good enough to play. But sports have really changed over the course of my life since I was a child. I'm sure for those of you who are older than me, it has for you too. It used to be when I grew up, there was only one kind of league to play in. It was school ball. That was, if you wanted to play, you played at school and that was it. Now there's school ball, there's rec ball, there's travel ball, there's church league ball, we have 2 months off, so let's fill it in with another league ball. And there's all these kind of leagues. And when I grew up, it was you either play at school or you don't play at all. And I remember in my dad's neighborhood, we lived down a dirt road with a bunch of country kids. And when I was at his house and we wanted to play football, you know what we do? We grab the football, we make our circle around the neighborhood, ask all the kids who wanted to play to come out. We'd come out and we'd play a pickup game of football. That's just what we did. But if you've ever been a part of a pickup game of basketball, football, baseball, whatever, you know how it usually works, right? The 2 captains end up being the most athletic kids on the court. That's just how it works. The 2 best athletes become the 2 captains. And then the 2 captains do what? They do a schoolyard pick. Okay, you go first. Well, I pick him. Well, I pick him. I pick him. And then there's usually like 2 people left at the end, right? Like there's me, and then there's the kid with 2 broken feet sitting at the end. It's like, which one do we want? And they're trying to decide between me and the kid with no feet. And so, you know, that's how it works. But the captains are making a decision based on what? Who's the best athlete out of the group? Okay, well, this person's really fast. Let's pick them. Okay, it's my pick. That person's like 2 times bigger than every kid out here. I want him. Okay, this kid has incredible hands. I know any pass I throw to him, he'll catch. Let me pick him. And they keep going down and down the row until like the last ones are left. And they're picking the best team based on skill because they want to win the game. Duh. Of course they want to win the game. That's the whole point of why we're playing. But that is not how God chooses his team. That is not how the gospel works. God does not choose the best, the brightest, the strongest, the smartest, the richest, the best looking to be on his team. He picks the degenerates. He picks the outcasts. He picks, guess what? You. He picks me. We aren't the smartest in this room. I'm looking around. I know some of y'all. I ain't the smartest. The only one in here I could say best looking is my wife, and I have to say that because she's in here. I'm just picking. She is the best looking in here. But, you know, we're not all the strongest. We're not all the smartest. And you may be saying, well, I don't know, Pastor. I'm looking around the room. I got to at least be top 2% in something. Because I see some of the people in here, man. I know I'm smarter than them. I know I'm stronger than them. I know I got a little bit better together than they do. I got to at least be top 2%, one of them categories. So let's just play the game because I want to just flesh that out. If you consider yourself top 2% in whatever you want to consider category-wise, ask yourself the question, how many people have given their life to Jesus because of how awesome you are? Like you're just sitting in a financial meeting, budgeting meeting at your work, and you're showing off how smart and good you are with numbers. And in the middle of the meeting, someone says, I drop to my knees, I'm going to give my life to Jesus right here because of how awesome you are with numbers. It doesn't happen. There's no disciples made because people are in awe of your majesty. People don't look at you and say, oh my God, they're so great. Because of how great they are, I'm going to follow Jesus. That doesn't work. And the reason I'm trying to get into our heads that maybe we're not as awesome as we think we are is because it's in you not being awesome that God can flex his grace and power. And when God chooses to use the lowly to bring to light and humble the strong, we see that God operates in a different world than we operate in. It's like a flag football team full of I think there's 11 on each side of the ball. So 11 offensive players, like 10 of them are just completely losers. Like they don't even know what a football looks like. They're just kind of signing up because it's fun to do. But they had that one player, dude, like 5-star recruit, could have gone D1, big, jacked. He can pass the ball to himself. He can run the ball. He can kick. He can punt. He can tackle. He can, argue with the officials. He's got it all going on. And because of him, they end up winning games. He's carrying the team and putting it on his back. That is the kind of team that you and I belong to. We are not helping. We're not a part of the majesty of our community of faith here. I'm not the star of the show. You're not the star of the show. We gather together to be amazed by the one star of the show, Jesus Christ, who is helping us every day walk through our life. And that's the kind of family, that's the kind of team that God is creating, God is molding. A bunch of misfits that all come together to be in awe of how awesome God is. That's why Paul would write in 1 Corinthians 1, he says, brothers and sisters, consider your calling. Not many were wise from a human perspective. We ain't that smart. Not many powerful. We ain't that strong. Not many of us had noble birth. We all ain't got the right last name. Instead, God has chosen what is foolish in the world to shame the strong. God has chosen what is insignificant and despised in the world, what is viewed as nothing, to bring nothing what is viewed as something, so that no one may boast in his presence. when we talk about partiality, when we talk about favoritism, we do dishonor God when we show that, because in a very real way, that's not how God's heart operates. When we refuse to step out of what's comfortable for us to pursue our neighbors and help our neighbors, we show that we don't understand the gospel, because the heart of the gospel is God left what was comfortable in heaven to come down to earth, to take on human form, to step out of his home, to step out of his place, to step out of his origin, to live amongst a bunch of religious and outcast people, to save their souls. So if Jesus Christ is willing to step out of his comfort zone and his circles to pursue the lost and to help the orphans and widows, why do we consider ourselves better than he is? We aren't. And so Paul is addressing that. James is addressing that. When we show favoritism, we step out from underneath God's grace and we begin to act like God ourselves and judging people by our standards instead of God's standards. And that's what James is addressing here. Don't show favoritism. Why? Because it dishonors God. It dishonors God. It shows that we don't understand the heart of the message we believe. That's why he goes on in the next couple of verses to say, yet you have dishonored the poor. Don't the rich oppress you and drag you into court? Don't they blaspheme the good name that was invoked over you? James' accusation against the church is that they so wanted to be loved and accepted by the world and seen as relevant that they were willing to leave behind their brothers and sisters in the faith and cuddle up with their persecutors, all for the sake of being accepted and loved by the world. You're leaving the poor to snuggle up with the rich who are actually making the poor's life horrible just so you can be accepted and loved by the rich? That's what he's accusing them of. And you're snuggling up with the very people that are persecuting the church, that are mocking your faith, also that they can accept you and love you. And one of the saddest things you'll ever see, I hope that you never have to see it. You know, being a pastor and counseling people, you see it oftentimes. It's one of the saddest things you can experience is when you're counseling a person who is going through a domestic abusive relationship and they come to you for advice or for counsel or for help as a resource. And you give them the resources, you help, and you walk with them through it as best as you can. Statistically speaking, at least at one point in their life, they will turn around and walk back into the house of their abuser and snuggle up with them at night, cuddling up to the person who's bringing them the most harm and most pain. And that is incredibly sad to see. But that's incredibly what's happening here. The church wanted to be relevant to the fact that they were willing to leave their brothers and sisters in the faith behind. They were willing to be cool. They were willing to be accepted and loved by the wrong people, all for the sake of being accepted and loved. And James is saying, why would you do that? Why would you leave and pursue these relationships with people that don't even care about you? He's saying something that's so true for us as Americans to understand today. You will never make Jesus so cool that your faith is popular and cool. We will never be a popularly accepted religion or faith in our society, because we are the counterculture to the culture. When we are marginalized and outcast from society because of our views on a variety of topics that are deemed as outdated, we can hold fast to that marginalization knowing that we don't live for this life alone. You live so much of your life wanting to be accepted and loved, but you're living for this life. Christians are called to live past this life and seek what's eternal, to seek what's true, to seek what lasts. And acceptance and love from the wrong people don't last. And James is calling these people out on this. He goes on to say in the next couple of verses, indeed, if you fulfill the royal law prescribed in the scriptures, which is love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing well. And if you want to really please and honor God, do the word. Don't just hear it, right? We can sit here and hear me talk about well, Christians need to love their neighbor. They need to love God with all they have. And we can amen it. We can quote it on Facebook. We can tag and do all that fancy stuff. But if we're not doing it, that's not pleasing God. God is after more than just your lip service. He wants a life that is dedicated to putting it into action. He goes on to keep saying, if, however, you show favoritism, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever keeps the entire law and yet stumbles at one point is guilty of breaking it all. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. So if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you are a lawbreaker. When we come into a church environment like this, and by church, I don't mean what the church really is, which is you and I. I'm talking about a church service, a church building. When we come into an environment like this, it's easy to not be known by anybody. It's easy to kind of know how to play the game so you don't have to talk to people, you don't have to interact with people. You know that if you come in 10 minutes later, you can skip the line of the coffee, you can sneak in the back, you can bolt out as soon as I start praying and know that you'll get to your car before anyone has to talk to you. We know how to kind of play that game, and we can hide and not be known by people. And it's easy to hear a message like this and think to ourselves, well, Pastor, I'll be honest, I ain't committed no real crime here. Right? You're talking about what a Christian looks like, and you're saying this, that, and the other. But to be honest, I mean, I've never killed a man. I've never cheated on my wife. I've not committed any great sins. So aren't I okay? James's point is, if you fail at one point of the law, you fail at all of it. If you fail and you lie one time in your life, you've broken the entire law. We love to look at the 10 Commandments and say, I've got 9 out of 10 of them down, Pastor. You break one, you break all 10. That's how the law works. And that's why Jesus saving you from the law and his grace is such a miraculous thing. And so when he's talking about here is do not show favoritism. Don't question some of the things that you're questioning. You have to understand that if you break one part of the law, you are considered a lawbreaker. You sin once, you are considered a sinner. That is how the law works, but Jesus' grace saves us from the law. And that's the beauty of our faith. We'll go on to read the next verse in James chapter 2, verse 12. He says, speak and act as those who are to be judged by the law of freedom. Again, we are not just hearing the law, but we are doing the law. That's what Christians do. They put their faith into action. And so when we hear the commands of Jesus and we refuse to act on them, brother and sister, I have to tell you, that should be a red flag in your life. It should be a red flag that you know what you should be doing, but you refuse to do it. And I just want to aside real quick. If you're in here, like I said, and you're a new Christian and you're struggling, and you're saying, Pastor, I really don't even know what the Bible says. I know Jesus is Lord. I love him. I want to follow him. But every day I get up, I don't really understand what to do. I don't understand how to pray. I don't understand how to live. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure it out, but I know that I'm missing the mark. And when I miss the mark, I'm trying to wrestle with God and figure out how I can progress, figure out how I can move past it, figure out how I can get beyond these things that I keep failing at. That attitude, that mindset is a green flag. Because it shows conviction. But it's easy to excuse disobedience with excuses. Well, I don't do blank because the church staff doesn't do ... Well, I don't do everything God commands me to do because, right, God forgives anyway. So if God's going to forgive me anyway, I might as well live the life I want to live because I'm good. I got my get out of hell free card. I'm good. I don't need to follow. So we excuse our sin. We excuse our disobedience, and I'm here to tell you today, if you have grown comfortable with your disobedience, you need to stop and check your heart and see who your allegiance really belongs to. Because Christians aren't okay and comfortable with disobedience. I'm not telling you can't go through a season where you get comfortable with disobedience. Hey, look, I've ran through seasons where I was depressed. I knew what I should be doing, but I just struggled to do them, and I kind of felt normal about it, but I moved beyond that. All Christians, new or not, have at one point in their life wrestled with the fact that they're not obeying the way they wish they could obey. And if you're comfortable with your disobedience, you need to check your allegiance today, because James makes it clear. Christians are not comfortable with disobedience. He goes on to say this, last verse of the day, for judgment is without mercy to the one who has not shown mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. And you may be sitting here today and saying, well, Pastor, I don't really care about what you're saying. Like, I get it, cool deal. But I would also say, I don't follow Jesus. Okay, you've defined yourself correctly, brother. You've defined yourself correctly, sister. You don't have to care about what I say. I'm not a special man. You don't have to care about my message. You don't have to care about what James is trying to put before us. But don't define yourself as something you're not then. So again, please don't hear me making demands for perfection. I'm not making demands for perfection. I'm just telling you that Christians pursue progress. And pursuing progress means we don't become comfortable with disobedience. And so James is saying something that seems counter to what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. James is saying those who refuse to show mercy will get judgment. And Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, he said, those who extend mercy will receive mercy. So we have to really understand what's going on here, because Matthew 7 verse 2 makes it clear what kind of these two passages come together as. Jesus says this, "For you will be judged by the same standard with which you judge others, and you will be measured by the same measure that you use." Why is that true? Because he knows that faith without mercy towards others isn't genuine faith. I love what Jesus has done for me. I accept his grace. I love his mercy. I love his patience. I love his kindness, but I refuse to give it to other people. That is a heart that does not understand the faith you claim to profess. Faith without mercy towards others is not genuine faith. And I can't try to convince you that it is. I'm not saying you don't stumble again. I'm not saying you don't fall. There are days I don't extend mercy the way I should. I'm a pastor. But are you comfortable with not extending mercy? You find it fine that you're not doing the things that maybe God is calling us to do. And we must fight against those things. Christians will lay those attitudes before the cross in prayer and say, I don't like that I do this. I know this is wrong, Father. I'm trying. I haven't figured it out. Please take this thorn out of my flesh. Help me move beyond this. I don't know what to do, but I need help. That's what Christians do. Unbelievers are okay. I don't have to extend mercy. That person hurt me. No reason to. So the what is, do not show favoritism. The why is because when we show favoritism, we dishonor God and we show that we don't understand the gospel. The better way for you and I today is to let mercy reign in our hearts. James concludes by telling us that we need to remember that God's mercy has triumphed over judgment in our lives. And when we remember it and we think on those things, it becomes easier to extend that same mercy to other people. It's hard to extend the same mercy we've been given when we forget the gospel. Pastor Scott said many a times, it's not his original quote, but I love the quote regardless, we need to preach the gospel to ourselves every day because we forget the gospel every day. And when we remember what's been given to us, the more likely we are to extend it to others. And I know that a message like this doesn't always land well. I know it can seem, again, like it's a little harsh, or that James is sending out a lot of warnings. But remember, again, the warnings aren't just warnings. The warnings are invitations into something that's better for us. That we don't have to show favorites, right? You may be in here and you may be saying, you know what, Preston, I don't want people to know, but I guess I do got a little bit of money, and that's bad because it sounds like the rich people are the worst people in the Bible. So you're like tucking your BMW key deeper into your pocket so we don't see, or you're trying to cover up your nice new sweater. That's not the point, right? This whole point about favoritism is not stop favoring the rich and start favoring the poor instead. That's not the point of James. The point of James is don't show favoritism either way. And so we listen to messages like this and it may seem harsh, but I want to put before you as I close, the messages like this are actually what's most helpful for us. I'll give you the best analogy I can to explain why. If you're sick and you're sicker than normal, I'm not just talking about a couple sniffles, you're sick and you don't know what's going on, you have two options. You can sit in your house and try to figure it out on your own and go to WebMD and figure out you're going to die in the next 2 days. Or you can go to the hospital and ask a professional to diagnose you. But the hospital is a terrible place to go. I don't like the hospital. It's one of the most depressing places in the world. There's a lot of anxiety that comes to the hospital, sitting in the waiting room, getting your tests done, getting your scans done, waiting for the results to come back to you. But the reality is the doctor, the nurse is going to come in with your scans, with your results, and they're going to say one of two things. Preston, it looks like everything's good here. We have no cause for concern. I would recommend maybe going and getting some over-the-counter medication, keep trying to treat it. We don't see anything causing concern here. Or they're going to say, Preston, actually, we do see a lot of cause for concern here. There's a lot of things that we need to address, and we need to come up with a plan to treat it so that you can get healthy again. If we refuse to have the hard conversations with ourselves, it's like refusing to go to the doctor. We must at some point learn the best thing for us to do is be honest with ourselves. And even if the answer is you are pretty sick, there are some things that are going to need to change. You can celebrate in that. You know, the reality is you can celebrate whether you have a clean bill of health or you have a bad bill of health because at least now you know the problem. At least now you know how you can get past it and you can treat it and you can work through it. But refusing to get diagnosis is the worst thing because you can't celebrate either way. You're just left in confusion. And so if we're going to grow, if we're going to progress, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, am I really, truly following God? Am I really, truly loving people the way God has called me to love people? And if I'm not, have I ever wrestled through that disobedience? And if you would say, you know what, I've never wrestled through it. My whole life I've never felt uncomfortable with my disobedience. And I'm just going to tell you straight up, and you've got to question your salvation today. But there are those of you in here today that you've questioned your salvation, but you've wrestled through your disobedience. You've wrestled with wanting to be better and more than you've been. And I'm here to tell you, brother and sister, rest. Believers struggle like that. Unbelievers don't. You can find comfort in the yes or comfort in the no. But what we like to do is we like to put on a facade. Well, I won't really be godly, but I'll just appear godly. That doesn't honor God. Do you think God's honored when you just put on a facade for church and pretend like you're holier than you are, but you're not really holy? That doesn't honor God. But we love to put on the facade. We want to act godly without actually being godly. And James is calling that out in this church. He's saying, stop with the facade. Follow God. And if you're going to follow God, you need to love people and you need to love God with everything you have. And you should not be showing favoritism to anyone for any reason, because the gospel does not play favorites. And that's what we need to understand. If we want our magic back, we want our mojo back, or whatever you want to call it, you want your fire back for Jesus and the faith, man, you've got to plug into community, like I said last week. But more than that, you've got to come face to face with yourself, and you've got to start loving people the way God has called you to love them. And you've got to start pursuing progress, not perfection, as you follow God every day, imperfectly, one step at a time. Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you that you are moving even when we feel like we're not moving. God, help me be the starting point. God, it's easy for pastors to get up here and say, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. But God, help me be the person who looks at myself in the mirror every day and asks, is my heart comfortable with disobedience? Help me learn to love and follow you as an individual. Help me understand what it means to have high character and love you the way you've called me to love you. Allow me not to show favorites. Allow me not to have discrimination. Allow me to love you and love all people from all walks of life the best way that I can. God, for everyone in here today, everyone watching online, I pray for a spirit of peace to surround them, the ones who need the peace today, God, who have been struggling, but they need to know today that they are secure in their place in your family. And for the people in here who have been fooling ourselves, God, help us come face to face with the reality that maybe we're on a different path with different allegiances than we once thought. Help us be men and women passionate about your mission, passionate about loving people, and most importantly, passionate about pursuing progress, not perfection, because you've already done that for us. We love you, Jesus. We pray in your name. Amen. Before I let you go, one last announcement. I've done this last 2 weeks. I'll do it again. Saturday is Love Thy City. This is the last Sunday. I'll mention it because it's this Saturday from 8 to 1 p.m. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said in hosting just because some of you, again, came in late. We would love for more people to sign up. Right now, we're probably around 25. We need 10 more people to be able to do what we need to do, honestly. You can sign up by going to fplive.org/lovethycity, or if you don't want to, we have physical copies that you can fill out at the New Here area and at Allison's table in her lobby in Kid Venture. If you cannot serve Saturday for whatever reason, if you really can't, like you just physically can't or don't want to, you can still help in a bunch of ways. You can give money to help with the Wash House project. Everything we receive as a family here, as a church, the Wash House is going to match. So if we raise $1,000, they'll match the $1,000. We'll be able to bless the community that way. You can give if you're not willing to serve. If you're not willing to serve and you're not willing to give, you can also help by donating clothes. We're doing a clothing giveaway that's going to really bless the less fortunate. I would really encourage you to go through your closet, look at something that you don't wear anymore, you can't fit anymore, and consider donating it. We are still actually really in need of clothes right now. We have a lot of people coming, and we don't want like the first 4 families to go through when we be out of clothes. So we would really, really, really love you to consider donating some clothes for the clothing outreach. You can come by the church any day, Monday through Thursday. Staff will be here after Thursday. It's kind of where we have to cut off taking donations for the clothing giveaway. But I do love you guys. I hope to see you Saturday. And I hope you have a great NFL kickoff weekend. Go Patriots. Have a great Sunday.